The notification pinged on my phone, a mundane sound that would soon unravel the carefully constructed reality of my marriage. It was an alert from our joint bank account. A large sum had been transferred out. My heart sank. Liam had been so insistent lately about tightening our belts, lamenting our supposed lack of funds for the family vacation we've been planning for months. "We just can't swing it this year, Sarah," he'd said just last week, his brow furrowed with what I now recognized as a masterful performance of financial worry. Curiosity, laced with a growing unease, propelled me to open the banking app. The transaction details swam into focus. A transfer of $50,000. The recipient? Eleanor Vance, Liam's ex-wife. A cold dread washed over me, chilling me to the bone despite the warm afternoon sun streaming through the window. $50,000. That was more than a third of our savings, and it was going to the woman he claimed to have moved on from years ago. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Perhaps it was a loan? An investment? But why the secrecy? Why the constant complaints about our finances if he had this kind of money to just give away? The pieces didn't fit. The cheerful anticipation I'd felt for our upcoming anniversary dinner at the Gilded Spoon, a place we'd been wanting to try for ages, evaporated, replaced by a gnawing suspicion that threatened to consume me. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of agitated distraction, replaying Liam's recent behavior in my mind. The hushed phone calls he'd abruptly ended when I entered the room, the vague excuses for late nights at the office, the almost theatrical sighs whenever I mentioned the vacation. It all clicked into place with a sickening certainty. He hadn't been worried about our finances. He'd been deliberately misleading me. By the time Liam arrived home, his usual jovial greeting felt like a cruel mockery. I forced a smile, determined to play it cool until we were at the restaurant. I needed to confront him in a public place, somewhere he couldn't easily deflect or explode. The drive to the Gilded Spoon was filled with strained small talk, my insides churning with a mixture of anger and hurt. The restaurant was everything we'd imagined, elegant, with soft lighting and the murmur of polite conversation filling the air. We were seated at a cozy corner table, the perfect setting for what was about to be a very uncomfortable discussion. As we perused the menu, my hands trembled slightly. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Liam," I began, my tone carefully neutral. "I noticed a rather large transaction in our bank account today." He looked up from his menu, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Oh? What was that?" he asked, his voice a little too casual. "A transfer of $50,000 to Eleanor Vance," I stated, watching his reaction intently. His composure wavered for a split second. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly before he quickly masked his surprise with a look of feigned confusion. "Eleanor? There must be some mistake, Sarah. I haven't spoken to Eleanor in months. Liam, it's clearly marked. $50,000 transferred this morning. Care to explain?" My voice was firmer now, the carefully constructed neutrality beginning to crumble. He put down his menu, his gaze shifting nervously around the room. "Well," he began, a slight tremor in his voice. "It's complicated." "Complicated how? Did you suddenly decide to become our secret benefactor while telling me we can't afford a few days at the beach with our kids?" The bitterness in my voice was now undeniable. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Look, Sarah, please don't make a scene. Let me explain." "Explain what, Liam?" "Explain how you can lie to my face about our financial situation while secretly gifting your ex-wife a small fortune? Explain why you felt the need to hide this from me." My voice was rising despite my best efforts, and I could feel the curious glances of nearby diners. He reached across the table, trying to take my hand, but I recoiled. "It wasn't a gift, exactly," he stammered, his face now pale. She needed help. Help with what, Liam? A down payment on a yacht? Because $50,000 is a lot of help for someone you supposedly have no contact with. My sarcasm was sharp, laced with the raw sting of betrayal. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's been having some financial difficulties. Her business, it's not doing well, and her mother is sick. I felt obligated to help." "Obligated?" I repeated, incredulous. "Liam, you have a wife and children who you claimed you couldn't afford a vacation. What kind of obligation do you possibly have to your ex-wife that supersedes your responsibilities to your own family?" His eyes darted around the room again, a look of growing panic on his face. "Please, Sarah, let's not do this here." "Why not, Liam?" "Afraid someone might hear what kind of husband you really are." My voice was trembling now, the anger threatening to boil over into tears. Suddenly, a voice spoke from directly behind Liam, a voice that sent a shockwave through the entire restaurant, silencing the surrounding conversations. Obligated, you say, Liam? Liam froze, his back stiffening, his face drained of all color. He slowly turned his head, his eyes widening in disbelief and terror. Standing there, a composed and elegant woman with a steely glint in her eyes, was Eleanor Vance. My jaw dropped. What were the odds? How could this be happening? Eleanor's gaze was fixed on Liam, her expression a mixture of cold fury and something akin to pity. You told Sarah it was your obligation that prompted this generous donation? She asked, her voice dangerously low. Liam stammered, trying to find words, but nothing came out. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. Eleanor turned her attention to me, her expression softening slightly. Sarah, I apologize for this public display, but I think you deserve to know the truth. I nodded slowly, my mind reeling. I had so many questions, but right now, I just wanted to hear what Eleanor had to say. Liam didn't give me $50,000 out of some misplaced sense of obligation, Eleanor continued, her voice clear and steady. He gave it to me because he stole it from me years ago. A collective gasp rippled through the nearby tables. I stared at Eleanor, my mind struggling to process her words. Stole? Eleanor went on to explain how, during their marriage, Liam had convinced her to invest in a business venture that turned out to be a scam. He had handled all the finances, and when the venture collapsed, a significant amount of Eleanor's inheritance had vanished along with it. She had suspected Liam's involvement, but had never been able to prove it. They divorced shortly after, the financial loss a major contributing factor. He contacted me a few weeks ago, Eleanor explained, her gaze returning to Liam, who was now slumped in his chair, his face buried in his hand. He said he felt guilty and wanted to make amends. He offered me this money as some sort of hush money, I suppose, to keep quiet about what he did. My blood ran cold. Not only had Liam lied to me about our finances, but he had also apparently defrauded his ex-wife and then tried to buy her silence with our money. The betrayal was staggering. I told him I didn't want his dirty money, Eleanor continued, her voice filled with disdain. But he insisted on transferring it. I was planning on returning it to your joint account, Sarah, as soon as I could figure out the best way to do so without causing this. She gestured vaguely between Liam and me. Tears welled up in my eyes, a mixture of anger, hurt, and a strange sense of relief that my initial suspicions had been correct, albeit in a far more sinister way than I had imagined. Liam? I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. Is this true? He didn't look up. He simply nodded. The silence in the restaurant was deafening. Every eye seemed to be on us. The romantic anniversary dinner we had planned had turned into a public unraveling of our marriage. I don't know what to say, Sarah, Liam mumbled, his voice really audible. Say, I repeated, my voice rising again. How about the truth for once, Liam? How about explaining why you would steal from your wife, lie to her face, and then try to cover it all up with more lies? Eleanor stepped forward, placing a hand gently on my arm. Sarah, perhaps this isn't the place. I shook my head, my gaze fixed on Liam. No, Eleanor, this is exactly where this needs to happen. He thought he could manipulate us both, keep us in the dark. Well, the lights are on now, and I don't like what I see. I stood up, my legs shaking but my resolve firming. I think it's time for me to go. I looked at Eleanor. Thank you, I said, a genuine sense of gratitude washing over me. She nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. I turned back to Liam, who was still slumped at the table, a picture of utter defeat. Don't bother coming home, Liam. With that, I walked out of the Gilded Spoon, the weight of his betrayal heavy on my heart, but also with a strange sense of liberty. The secret was out, the truth had been revealed, and while the pain was immense, I knew I could no longer live a lie. My anniversary dinner had been a disaster, but it had also been the catalyst for a new, albeit uncertain, beginning. As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder what Liam was thinking, especially knowing that the woman he tried to silence was the very person who had exposed his... The twist of fate was almost poetic, a bitter end to a chapter I was finally ready to close. Click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single update. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this shocking revelation and what you predict will happen next. Your thoughts and theories are always welcome.